Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Today is a special episode in my series on new and emerging solutions, and today's guest is Chirag Gandhi of Mili. Past guests in this series have included Marco Vasca of Precept, Richard Rudy of Captain Compliance, and Thomas Clausen of Slant. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using Quick, you'll be able to generate completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. Now, before I fully introduce today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Rich Whalen of Equity Services, Inc., who is also a prior guest on my show. So go check out ESI's website at equityservices.com and check out Rich's episode on the Customer Wins. All right. Chirag Gandhi is the co-founder and CEO of Mili, a house of tailored AI agents for advice firms. He brings deep financial services experience from Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse. Previously, he raised and managed $400 million at Kalari Capital and Trifecta. Mili has processed hundreds of thousands of advisor meetings, giving the team a front row view of how to integrate AI into real advisor workflows. This is exactly what I want to talk about today. Chirag, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Thank you so much, Rich, for having me today.
Yeah, man, you're doing some cool things. I think everybody wants to hear about it. For those who haven't heard my podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So, Chirag, I want to understand your company a lot better. How does your company help people?
Absolutely. So, Rich, at Mili, we are building AI agents that can streamline operational workflows for wealth advisors and essentially get them more time to be talking to their customers, serving their customers better, and take away everything that's admin, that's mundane, that does not help grow the practice. So, where we really started was with meetings and solving that workflow, essentially helping you prepare for meetings, take notes, update systems of record. And like you pointed out in the introduction, as we have now done this 100,000 times over, naturally, we've had discussions on where else can Mili really help. And it's interesting. I've just come out of a lot of quarterly business reviews that we do with our enterprise customers, and the impact that they are seeing in the platform beyond just meetings has been phenomenal. So I'm excited to share all that and more in our chat today.
Nice. I got to admit, when I talk to customers, forms is what I talk to them about, but the number one topic I'm hearing is the agentic workforce. They all have initiatives, like how do we build agents? I have heard of people building it themselves. I've heard of people buying things and trying to put it together. Of course, Jump and Zox and these note takers took off and everybody was talking about them. Where do you guys see yourselves fitting in this world? Is this a build it yourself? Are you building it for them? Is it turnkey? How does this get into market for a customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rich, we are built specifically for financial advisors. And when we say financial advisors, we mean anybody that touches the financial services life cycle of a client. So the wealth advisor is obviously has a very key role in that journey. But you also have a tax planner, an estate planning attorney, in some cases an investment banker who gets looped in when it's an M&A transaction, right? And Mili serves all of these different cohorts, and oftentimes it's interesting when both of these firms are using Mili to serve the same end client, right? And the kind of goodness you can have with solving for workflows, not just internally, but collaborate better with other stakeholders is great for the end customer. Um, so that's what we are seeing. And when we started, we had a had a very cautious approach to deploying safe, practical, and compliant AI.
Mhm.
And that has continued to be our ethos given the industry that we are building in. But for us, what's been eye opening is over the last 12 months, the conversation has really shifted um, from how AI could actually be implemented in our industry to what all can we solve with AI, right? And we want to utilize it to the maximum potential. So that's been great to see.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back though. Does a customer get your product and it just works? Do they have to configure it? Do they have to do you custom code anything for anybody? Because a lot of advisors have different workflows and different types of clients and CRMs and all the tech stack.
Yeah, so that was the first learning we had, Rich, which is you could have two advice firms separated by a few blocks in New York, and their need of a software like ours could mean very different things. So today, Mili comes configured out of the box with a set of 12 different meeting templates with integrations with pretty much the ecosystem across your CRM, financial planning software, custodian, so on and so forth. But beyond that, where we really thrive as a team is we love ensuring there is that customization for each firm. And the way we do it is with something called a forward deployed engineer. So our customer success team and the engineering team steps in even before firms sign with Mili as a platform, and we ensure that all of their workflows, be it the meeting types, what gets discussed in the meetings, are all mapped on the Mili platform. So it becomes their tool. It's not a generic software you've purchased off the shelf.
Yeah. So there is an implementation process, right? Your team is working with the customer to understand it and then deploy it in the way that makes most sense for them. Does that mean you also get into custom prompting and custom coding to build these agents? Look, I run a software company, so I'm just really curious, like how flexible is your architecture versus what do you have to build for customers and when they ask?
Yeah, so and this is something I can only expect in a podcast with an entrepreneur like yourself. Uh, but so what we have, Rich, is we've built out the skeleton, right? So no matter what the meeting is, you would have a set of fields you want to discuss. There are a set of objects and fields you want to update in your CRM. And the customization then happens at the level of those elements, which is what are the fields that you really want in the meeting? What do you want to update in the CRM or your financial planning software, right? And
Yeah.
Millie is constantly forming, like, think of it like a client 360 that's ever evolving. That's a lot of the metadata about the underlying client. And that really ensures that no matter what that end outcome of a meeting is, Millie is there to deliver, right? Like it's for us about building that dictionary out for the firm. And once it's in place, it's logged and loaded.
Yeah. Look, Chirag, I'm asking for a lot of different types of reasons. Part of it is you have the compliance facet, right? Nobody wants to let loose an AI within their systems if they don't know what it's going to do. And the fact that you're going in and helping it understand and configuring it to the needs of that customer, that situation, that also helps to understand the compliance facet, which I want to talk more about. But the second thing I think about is everybody's system is different. I mean, Salesforce, every Salesforce implementation is different. And to say it's cookie cutter and turnkey is a fallacy for most software implementations. And I think a lot of people, well, I don't know if this is totally true, but I think a lot of people say, oh, AI is a silver bullet. It'll just do anything and everything. But there is a real world, like you've got to mesh these things together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So there is initially for firms, we end up spending a good amount of time in making sure that we understand their syntax. Um, and one example of that is we recently launched Mili Office, and think of it like ChatGPT for financial advisors that talks to all their systems. That's agentic in the way you want it to behave. And if somebody says, who are all my clients in Oklahoma? Millie would have to ask, okay, what address do you mean in the CRM? Is it the delivery address, the primary address, the secondary address, right? Like, and
Mhm.
and these are fields that are at first not obvious to Millie, right? And it takes some amount of training to say, this is what it likely means in the scenarios, and give clients the option, right, in the generative interface to say, why don't you pick one and I'll remember it for the next time. Bear with me for the first time here.
Yeah. No, I like this. I like this. So going back to the compliance thing, um, how how do you make sure that your AI is not hallucinating? It's not using data in the wrong way. It's using somebody else's data to report on something else. How do you silo this thing? What do you do?
So, Rich, if I was to go back, I had mentioned the journey has really been of 2 years for us, of which the first year for us has been perfecting the right design choices, right? And those will keep coming up in our conversation. As it relates to the meeting agent, there are three key differences that we have that make this the most compliant implementation of a meeting agent. Number one, we do not send AI bots to the meeting. So if I would have Mili on right now in the call we are having, Mili would not join as a third participant as an AI note taker. We feel the space between the advisor and the client is pristine. It means something. And the client may joke and say, I don't know if I should talk about that, right, with AI in the room. But when they joke it, they mean it, right? There'll be some part, it could be a death, a divorce that they are just not comfortable talking about. Millie works silently in the background. We would still request for consent, but the consent is not a AI bot staring into your soul, right? While the meeting is happening.
Staring into your soul. I love it.
So that was number one. Incredibly hard to achieve. There are like 5 companies in the world that do it, including OpenAI, Notion. So we are in good company in that, right?
Congrats.
Um, the second has been no recordings. So Milli operates primarily through streaming, and the proof of the pudding is the notes don't come up after the meeting. They come up during the meeting. While the meeting is happening, you would see the notes come up. Millie would keep structuring them, would keep correcting her own mistakes made in the past during the conversation as well. And that's delightful to see, right? That's equivalent to having an assistant take notes in the meeting for you while the meeting was ongoing.
Yeah.
And for us, that means we don't need to create a recording ever, right? Like we are able to take notes in real time. And that was another technology unlock for us. And the third has been a very strong PII redaction. So even before anything goes to your amazing LLMs, right, like an OpenAI, a Claude, Milli internally redacts anything like social security numbers, account numbers, addresses, and all of that is configurable. So we work with enterprise partners that tell us what makes sense and what doesn't. And that makes sure that while we have a zero training policy with our underlying models, it's always good to be safe. So that's what
Yeah.
we're able to achieve. So these three design choices have been important.
I want to know the magic of how you did that. I'm not going to ask. That's too long of a conversation, but man, that's quite the achievement to get those things working together the way you did. That's amazing. There's another aspect of agents. I mean, this has been a really popular concept for a year and a half. I mean, I know last summer, well, a year and a half ago, people started to talk about agents. You were onto this 2 years ago, it sounds like. Like, did you have this notion of AI should be agentic before people were really seeing it and doing it?
Yeah, Rich. And like while our website was all about meeting notes for the first year because we wanted to be very mindful of what we implement. Our seed fundraise deck to our investors back then was what's our grand vision, right? Where do we see all of this headed? Um, and that's where we see AI being deployed, right? So it's all about what are all the moments in your day where you'd be like, man, I wish I could give somebody this context and somebody I could delegate this task to someone, right? And for a lot
Yeah.
of these tasks, it's hard to delegate because these are small tasks, but all of them add up and all of them sometimes require different pieces of the puzzle. For some, you may want to refer to your financial planning software, for some, your trading software, and it's all here, right? How do we get that context out in the real world for you to actually act on those workflows? Was always the vision where we're headed. And for me, it's personally meaningful because I feel the threshold of net worth for somebody to get a financial advisor in the US is pretty damn high, right? And
Sure.
I think if we can give advisors back their time, all of that goes back into saying yes to that teacher, right? maybe saying yes to that veteran. So that to me is the most fulfilling part of what we do.
No, I love that. Um, the concept of agent has taken a lot of different forms over the discussions I've heard. And you talk about like small little tasks that add up, and it makes perfect sense that an agent can go do that. Hey, drop the note into my CRM for me. I don't have to do that. Schedule the next meeting possibly. I don't know all the things that you're doing. How big can an agent be? Like, could it replace an actual person in a role?
So the evolution that we are seeing, and I'll definitely answer your question as well on where does all of this go. But I think the
Yeah.
building blocks for us are the three A's. With agents, you should be able to ask, automate, and alert, right? And most of when people say agentic workflows, most of them today refer to ask, which is information retrieval. What was the 401k value, right, for this household, or how many of my clients have I not spoken to in the last year? All of that is ask. Some of the ask can get really interesting, but it's more about
Mhm.
getting the data in. Now, as you do this more and more, as you have deep workflow understanding, which we have been grateful of our customers to share that with us, you can start automating these workflows, and that need to be in a predefined path, right? Which is in an onboarding process. We want to get these documents. Documents need to be scanned, uploaded. These are the forms that we need to fill. Ta 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 ta, and this is how we onboard a customer, right? So for one of the customers, we recently filled up 1,400 forms as it relates to onboarding and migrating their customers. So that's the second piece. But the third is alerts. And today, this is where the human cognition comes into play, right? Which is doing things before you are told to.
Mhm.
And that takes a lot of understanding and context of the firm, how you serve your clients, or even taking a step back, who are your clients, right? And what are you doing for them? And that context takes time.
Yeah.
And with all these three pieces is where you can deliver a truly agentic solution for the customers, which is what we are building towards. As it comes to, can it do everything a human can? We believe anything that is just about applying the cognitive power to a job is what AI would eventually be able to take up. The pieces that will become even more relevant and special are the relationships that advisors have with their clients, and anything that requires physical dexterity, right? Where it's also about going to places and doing things which may not just be about the cognition. Those are really the two special edges that humans continue to have.
Good. So AI is not going to take my clients golfing for me. That's what you're
Absolutely.
saying. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Perfect. No, it's a really interesting concept because there's so much fear I hear from people in the workforces. My wife's in healthcare. I hear about in the healthcare world, AI is going to replace my job. AI is going to replace my job, and I don't fully buy into it because I think that it's going to do tasks more than anything else. And if it can link a whole bunch of tasks together and perform a function, great. Maybe you just don't have that function as part of your role anymore and you don't worry about that. And that seems fair because who wants to do all the tasks? I mean, really.
Absolutely. I definitely feel the narrative here has gotten a lot ahead of the ground data that we're also
Yeah.
seeing in the economy, even beyond financial advisors. And I mean, yeah, trust the leadership to overstate the job losses to AI, right? Versus saying we probably underdelivered on our quarterly results. So
Yeah. Okay. So you started this conversation by saying you're exploring what else Mili can do, right? You're solving all these types of problems. What is it that you found Mili cannot do or probably should not do it other than the human, like we just talked about, being present and taking the hard calls of sorrow or whatever? Like what are you finding as insurmountable right now?
So there are really, I would say, two different buckets of what Mili cannot or should not do. One is as it relates to compliance in the industry, right? So if you think about it, SEC has given a free hand to AI for most purposes, as it still forms a point of view on AI. But one thing SEC is very clear on is AI not delivering investment advice. Because imagine OpenAI asking everybody to invest in the same stock, right? That wouldn't end well for anyone. So, so controlling market narratives and driving market action is not something anybody wants AI to be doing right now. It's okay to be informed with AI while you take those decisions, right? The second thing that we are seeing is anything that is client facing. It's we've always found it better to have human in the loop, and for an advisor to eventually sign off on the deliverable, on the financial plan, on the onboarding kit, or even a follow-up email, right? That just says, "Hey, lovely meeting with you." And in our case, 80% of the emails on the platform actually go with very minor edits to the clients. So Mili does a great job, but that said, it's always advisor in the loop. And clients would often come back and say, I'd still not walk to the car in the parking lot of the office, right? Before I got the follow-up email. So there is a certain timeline you should send the email out in, but that's been the most interesting. So uh, tasks where you have a very high impact on the client, or it's client facing, I would say, is always better advice to be reviewed before anything happens.
No, that's totally fair. So here's another curious thing I have. When I talk to customers and they say, "Oh yeah, we're investigating building our own agents," what advice would you give to people? I mean, I don't know how to build an agent. I've used agents. It's software development. We have agents, and I just tell Claude build an agent, so it builds an agent. I don't know the right way to do it. I'm just curious. I mean, you spent your last 2 years doing this. What are the pitfalls? What are people not understanding of what it takes to build an agent?
So there are three things as we see it. Number one is just the amount of investment, be it dollar or be it time. And today, the best of engineering talent is not given to you on a platter, right? And the best talent also wants to work at companies that are inspiring, that are again building for the future. I mean, for them, working at a multi-billion dollar RIA is not the most exciting proposition, right? Because they would do it once, but with a technology firm, they can do it several times over. And the relevant dollar cost as it comes to actually delivering those services over a period of time. And for a lot of firms, that cost itself is just prohibitive, or with the amount of time it will be in the roadmap for the next years to come, right? Before it actually gets to fruition. So number one is really that. Number two is readiness from the standpoint of data. And today, data exists across multiple different silos. So ensuring that you have the right data mapping, you have the right data hierarchy on, in case of a conflict, what do you refer to, right? That's very important. And at Mili, we have built our own proprietary engine to say, okay, for the different data sets, this is generally the puzzle, right? And we keep evolving that with more learnings in the industry. And the third is, and this is something that actually a client of ours told us, and it has struck with me since. You should really look inward as a firm and say, am I solving this only for myself? And is am I the only benefactor of an agent like this? Or does it make sense to solve this for multiple advice firms? If it's the former, customize it, build it internally, make it your IP. If it's the latter, it's you're always better off partnering with someone, because AI at the end of the day learns from data. Tada, right? Like, so the more context you have, the more mistakes you make, the more the underlying system gets better. In a multiple industry independent studies, Mili has ranked the highest when it comes to accuracy of meeting notes action items, right? And if it's at 97%, the way I would look at it is it's 3% more to go, right? Because there is no bar for error in the industry we are in. So that's the continuous improvement that you have to look at. And I often joke with my team about, it's become so easy to build right now that everybody should be an entrepreneur of some sorts, right? You should always be building right now. It's, you could write a few lines of code and have a system that works for you. So really, it's all about what edge cases do you want to be solving, right? Like what edge cases are you the most interested in troubleshooting that will keep you up at nights. And yeah, and do what, and then that could be something that you build for your clients, for example, over a weekend, and that's great.
Pardon me, you've made a really, really good case for the build versus buy that's been going on forever about technology. Like build it yourself, you have to maintain it, you have to invest in it, you have to do all this work. Buy it from somebody, it's their core expertise. You get 80, 90% of what you need. You don't maybe get 100%. And AI has introduced this concept that everybody's talking through of like, well, it's so fast and easy to build. Should I just build it myself now? And I think there's a lot of pitfalls in there. And I'm also seeing a lot of people come around going, no, it's not as easy as you thought. There's a whole bunch of people like, oh, I went on Lovable. I built an app this weekend. You can't sell that app. It doesn't work the way you thought. It worked for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, there's another interesting facet to this, Chirag, which is right now, there's not everything exists that you want. I'll give you a case in point. This summer, I built a solution that builds products in Amazon for me. And I mean like enterprise industrial grade systems, workflows, and databases, all these things for software companies. And it works really, really well. And I have this framework and it's still rudimentary. I think somebody's going to build something similar. It'll be a commercial product and it'll be like, oh, here's my idea. Go build it for me, right? But that doesn't exist today. So then I'm in this quandary of, well, do I bring that product to market because I built it and it's working? And I think it's a hard thing because a lot of firms are inventing things as they go. But a firm like yours, where you're fully dedicated to this problem, you're going to solve it. So let me ask if you solved another type of problem. We have all seen the bias that LLMs have towards us. You're absolutely right. That is the best question to be asking right now. You're right on. Let me tell you why, right? Those types of positive, affirmated responses. In fact, I heard today somebody saying that he and his friend were debating on who's the best soccer player in the world. And they each asked AI and they got their answer. And they were like, see, it was biased. How are you, as you guys evolve, how are you protecting against bias and not even necessarily hallucination, but just this weird bias that AI is bringing right now?
So, Rich, so internally we have multiple facets by which we measure AI systems, but AI discrimination is really one where we have like now a 20 pager or a 30 pager, just like policy document, where we are stress testing our systems across a variety of different metrics with like predetermined scores on where we want them to be, and all of this obviously happens on synthetic data sets, so like synthetic made up transcripts of conversations between advisors and clients, and ensuring that that doesn't happen, right? And uh, and that bias could be in multiple forms, right? It could be as much as just being positively affirming on something. It could be the information is just not accurate, or it's not comprehensive, or it's there is no brevity, right? Like you could the analogy we would get is advisors would say before Mili, the tools they used, they would have word salads. They would have like 1,000 words pasted on the wall, and it's just not
Yeah,
helpful.
right.
So there are a lot of different guardrails, of which bias, discrimination, all of these are one. And as we have done this, we've also realized there is no right answer, which is why today ChatGPT as a platform is also struggling, and there for them the answer has been personas, where Rich may want to talk to an AI that's friendly, that's supportive, right? A young kid may want an AI that's just bashful, and maybe they're into something specific, right? So how do you really solve for that? Good thing is we solve for financial advisors that generally aren't that are fairly homogeneous versus the broader internet. But even with that, we love giving them the option to customize Mili for their own use case and write in a few prompts on top. The most interesting ones would be I always end my email with this signature, right? Or when I start an email, like I want to touch upon a few personal aspects of the meeting that we had, and I want to make a note about that as well. So all of that is possible with a few lines now. So that's what we offer.
Yeah. So one of the techniques I've been using over the past 2 months
Yeah.
probably is there's a concept, I guess, in software development, maybe just in general, of red team, blue team, where the blue team owns the product and the idea, and the red team debates it and pokes holes in it. And I didn't know this concept until about 2 weeks ago, by the way. And my CTO fully explained it to me. But I had this practice of building a panel of experts around a topic. So HR experts, legal experts, whatever. And I find that when you have that panel of experts and you get a collaborative conversation going, I'm seeing less of that, hey, Rich, you're right type of bias. And now I'm seeing more of different perspectives and views by having this kind of these different personas built into that single conversation I'm having. You guys ever do that?
Got it. That's actually very interesting. And that's not something I have actually done in both for like I am also an avid AI user myself, but
And what's your
definitely
tool of
something I
choice for yourself?
I would say Claude.
Yeah, I love Cloud.
And yeah, I find Google Gemini very left brain, very creative, artistic, and then OpenAI is the smartest model out there. But Claude gets both rights, right? Like it's personable, but at the same time, it's so I love the interface.
Yeah. One of the challenges I've had with ChatGPT, OpenAI, is that it'll infer things or skip details. It'll start
Hmm.
writing things for me and say, oh, the rest is a similar pattern, just do the rest. Claude doesn't do that. Claude's like, here it is, boom, 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 boom. And it'll just go and go and go and go and go. And it'll give you all the detail and all the depth. They definitely have different personalities, if you will. And they've both been really, really good. I have not played with many others. I've played with Perplexity. I haven't really gotten into Gemini, so I didn't know it was so creative, kind of left brain stuff. That's fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
Now, you're building Mili for the advisor. Do you guys use Mili internally as well? Does it serve your purposes in some way?
It absolutely does. So like we obviously have our own meeting templates, be it our customer reviews, feedback conversations, the onboarding conversations, the quarterly business review. And it's collaborative in nature as well, right? So it's like just one person in a meeting really has to have Milli on and everybody benefits from that. Um, we only got the HubSpot integration live a few months back, and that was great for the team because internally we also use HubSpot. So getting all of that data back in the CRM has been wonderful. So it's now that we are getting to see the same magic that our customers get to see from the product.
Do you think Mili will transcend financial services? I mean, sales are sales, right? Having conversations and tracking information and performing work.
Yeah. So when we started Rich, that was the $1 billion question, which is what do we want to be when we grow up? And I think unanimously within the team we landed on, and I've personally been very excited to be solving for this industry. This is an industry where I have not yet had sort of gray hair, but I'm getting there, right? So like I've spent a decade here, really understand the pain points, and with AI, like you rightly pointed out, as like building a system, building something 0 to 1 is easy. It's all about how do you impact a few firms very, very deeply, meaningfully, and transform how they actually serve their clients. And we think all of that comes from depth, not breadth, right? Like it comes from really understanding. And if you think about it, we are not the first note taker. That's not a net new insight, right? Like we've had
Sure.
hundreds of note takers preceding Mili, but the adoption of these generic note takers in our industry before when we started was less than 0.5%, right? So when you're trying to be something for everybody, like it works for the ease of use and a shallow use case to get started, but it's hard to have that context. You're not talking to the CRMs, you're not talking to the things that matter, and you're always limited in the potential. So that's what grounds us to this industry. But I would love to learn from you as well on how did you decide on that for Quick and how has the journey been?
Yeah, it's an actual question that we struggled with internally as well. So we're in financial services because I left technology to become a financial advisor, and I had to fill out forms. And so
Mm.
that was my knowledge expertise. That was the problem I understood. And I didn't try to build a product. I just built a solution for me. And 6 months went by with
Mm.
people saying, give me your product, Rich. I want it. And I said, no, 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 no. Finally, I said, okay, I guess we have something here. We should build it. But the truth is, forms are everywhere. They're in the government. they're in healthcare, they're in logistics, they're in everywhere. So forms is a universal problem. And we years ago had to answer the question of, do we want to stay deep in financial services or wealth management, or do we want to go horizontal across all industries at some point? And frankly, I think I've always had it in my heart to go horizontal because data informs or data informs, right? It doesn't really matter. So that's why we've partnered with people who are really deep in new account opening processes or workflows and integrations. Not to say we don't have some, but our goal is really just to enable forms, period. Get your data to and from the form, get them signed, get them processed, make it work within any workflow you want. And what's fascinating, because you say dive deep, we chose to dive deep on the topic of forms, not necessarily the wealth management industry, which we know well. But now we're moving beyond that into banking and insurance. We have immigration law. A bunch of lawyers use our product because it's just forms at the end of the day, right? But there's so much depth in what we do that nobody else is doing. And I really think that Quick is unique worldwide. We're waiting to see. Maybe there's somebody else doing it the way we do it, but I think we have a lot of runway in front of us. I'm realizing we're coming up on time or maybe past it. So I better get to my last question. But before I get to my last question, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you, Chirag?
So we are at getmili.ai. We've recently got a fresh paint of coat on the website. So please do check it out and give us any thoughts, feedback. And my LinkedIn is open. Love conversations on LinkedIn, and some of my best sort of conversations have happened on that platform. Go by Chirag Gandhi. The second name is easier, so you'd get that spelling right.
Well, you're in the show notes, so people can come to find that as well. All right, here's my last question. Honestly, my favorite question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
So, Rich, for me, idealizing leaders as a concept has definitely evolved with me over time. And over time, I've learned to really pick up different skills from different leaders on what I adore. And at the end of the day, humans are also imperfect. So what serves them well in certain conditions doesn't serve them well in other conditions, right? So it's all about picking what you align with the most. And I think in terms of the leadership style, one person that has continued to I've continued to learn from, idealize, has been Jeff Bezos. And the kind of culture that he has built at Amazon with a lot of attention to detail on the smallest things, right from how things get stacked in a warehouse to obviously the broader sort of strategy, right? But getting each of these pieces right with a lot of intricate design choices, and everything boiling down to, we are all about the decisions we take every day, right? And everything that we do as leaders, as team members. So, and all of that then determines what our clients value us for, right? The trust, the transparency, the belief that if it's Amazon, I'll get my order, right? So that's the kind of culture that we are also building here at Mili, and something I think is like enduring, right? Like, and is really timeless.
Yeah. No, I have huge admiration for Jeff Bezos and Amazon, one of my favorite companies for so many different reasons, especially because of my doorstep, getting packages on time or early.
Yeah.
Man, this has just been an awesome conversation. I hate to say goodbye at this point, but I want to give a huge thank you to Chirag Gandhi, co-founder and CEO of Mili, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Chirag's website at getmili, that's MILI.ai. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Chirag, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.